Hello. Can people find their seats, please? Okay, let me first make a most important announcement. The bathrooms can be found by heading straight through that back door right there. Okay, let's start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Our Lady, seat of wisdom, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And before I forget, actually, could everyone stand, please? Today is Dr. Judd's birthday. So, could we please sing to him? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dr. Judd. Happy birthday to you. Okay, please sit down. Okay, welcome to the first lecture in Wyoming Catholic College's 2025-26 lecture series. A special welcome, to the friends of the college who are here and to all those from the Lander community who are able to be here with us tonight. And also a special thank you to the Free Church for having us here. Okay, after the Q&A, we will have a wine and cheese reception here, right through those doors there. So please, we hope that you can stay and join us for discussion afterwards. Okay, our next lecture in the series will be given by Dr. Pia De Soleni, and that will be on Friday, September 12th, in 2 weeks from today. That will be right here at the Free Church again, and also we are probably making a slight change in time, and we'll probably have that and lectures going off into the future at 7:30 instead of 7 o'clock. Okay, let me give a little introduction to these lectures, especially for the freshmen here. We hold these lectures for a few different reasons, and I'll talk about just a few of the many reasons that we have these lectures. First, these lectures are a joyous occasion for the whole community to be together. At Wyoming Catholic, we normally do our thinking by ourselves or with a small group of people in the classroom, in a study group, around a table. But here we get to do it a few times a year. We get to be all together thinking about the same thing, right? Another thing that happens because we're all together is that we have an excuse to say a poem all together. As I am not a humanities professor, my bank of poems is quite small, but fortunately I have one that we could all say together. Much have I traveled in the realms of gold, and many goodly states and kingdoms seen. Round many western islands have I been, which bards and fealty through hollow hold. Oft of one wide expanse have I been told, that deep-browed Homer ruled as his dream. Yet never did I read his pure serene, till I heard Chapman speak out loud and bold. Then felt I like some watcher of the skies, when a new planet swims into his tent. Or like stout Cortez with eagle eyes, he stared at the Pacific, and all his men looked at each other with wild surmise, silent on peak and airy. Oh, I've been waiting 7 years to do that. Okay. Another reason why we hold these lectures is to get some glimpses of the wide world of intellectual life that goes on outside of our classrooms and outside of our campus. Our curriculum's put together to give what I think is a pretty good four-year education, but it is, after all, just a beginning. There are so many things where we don't plumb the deepest depths, and many topics we don't even touch at all. So, we occasionally bring in people who have thought more extensively about these things that we only spend a little time on, or no time, thinking about. And this lets us learn fascinating things we wouldn't other earn, and maybe just as importantly, it keeps us maybe a little bit humble. Another benefit of our lecture series is that they often encourage us to step back and reflect upon what it is that we're doing here at Wyoming Catholic College. Why is a liberal education that forms the whole person so important? How will it change our whole lives? Why do we do some of the things that we do here at Wyoming Catholic College? And I think tonight's lecture will help with these things that I've mentioned. First, we're all here together, so we've met that. We've said our poem. And now we'll learn from somebody who's thought about the subject of technology probably more than most of us have, and somebody who has read and heard from other people who have done quite a bit of research into new technological advances and what they do to us. So I'm hoping that we'll be thinking about this lecture throughout the year, especially as I think we're going to be spending a lot of time thinking about our tech policy, why we have it, and how do we adapt it to new things like AI, and as we learn more about the addictive nature of some of the devices we own. Our speaker tonight is Mr. Andrew Laubacher. He's our neighbor here in Lander, and he's the Executive Director of Humanality, a movement dedicated to helping people overcome digital addiction and reclaim their humanity. With degrees in Theology and Philosophy, Andrew brings a unique perspective to addressing modern technological challenges. His diverse background includes a decade as a touring musician, which gives him a global outlook on human connection, and he's a national board-certified health and wellness coach, as well as a personal trainer. His expertise in well-being is combined with Humanality's mission to create practical strategies for digital detox. Mr. Laubacher's lecture tonight is titled, Leading the Revolution, How the Science Behind Wyoming Catholic College's Tech Policy Could Transform Higher Education in America. Let's welcome Mr. Andrew Laubacher.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. I really wanted to start beatboxing behind that poem. That was really cool. I almost started to do that, but anyway, I'm very excited to be here with you all. I live here in Lander, Wyoming, even though I'm flying somewhere else in the world kind of every week, so I'm really excited to actually be here together and get to share about the mission of Humanality and what my kind of life's work has become. Which is funny because I feel like I'm the guy in Lander that's always talking on a phone and working in, on a computer all the coffee shops, So once you go through what we're sharing, you understand that we're not about, getting rid of technology completely. We're all about intentionality. And I really do believe that what I'm about to share tonight, which freshmen, raise your hand if you're a freshman in the house, any freshmen? Okay, you already heard a lot of this, okay, but I'm going to add a little, something here and there, you know what I mean? And it's going to be fresh and new. And I also kind of want to hear about your trip out in the wilderness. So we're going to have time for some Q&A. There's going to be a ton of science stories in my own life and my own struggles with a lot of these technologies. And there's just going to be a lot of information, so this is going to go quick. But I really do want to emphasize just how awesome. I mean, I literally talk to people around the world about this school and what's happening here, because this is so weird, okay? Like, I talked about this the other day. I like, one of my main things, this is actually my first presentation. I'm going to Christendom, to Ave Maria, to Benedictine, to UD, to San Diego in like the next 4 weeks, right? So let's give Wyoming Catholic College a round of applause, right? You guys are starting out the Humanality tour, okay? And we'll see if I survive this one. But everywhere I go, I share with people just little things. Like, I remember like moving here and like seeing, one of the students like sitting at like a bench outside, just like looking around. And I was like, this is odd, And like, they weren't just scrolling, looking at a phone. And like, you all have like incredible like skills to like talk to human beings, which you have to understand at other places, like all over the world, like this is actually a real problem. And just so maybe before we like get into all this fun stuff, just by show of hands, and again, this isn't like, let's not apply any like moral judgment to this, but raise your hand if you have never had a cell phone in your entire life. Nice. Okay, raise your hand if you've only had a flip phone. Okay, cool. Raise your hand if you've had some type of smartphone in your life at some point. Okay, so pretty much everybody. Okay, cool, me too. All right, so we're all on the same page here. So we're going to just break down a lot of the science that's coming out. I don't know why it is funny to think about why I'm so obsessed with this idea and what it's doing to the human person. I think because it had so many implications and struggles in my own life, I really care about it for you. And I really think that this university is doing something so radically different. It is going to improve your life on every front imaginable. And honestly, tonight, we're literally going to scratch the surface. Our Humanality villages is what I call them, are about to launch into the world, like literally internationally. Students, young people, churches, schools, businesses are going to start going through this digital detox program, which you don't really need to do because you don't have phones. But it's going to be, we're just on the precipice of some really exciting stuff. And to be able to share the information we're sharing through that program here tonight, it's just scratching the surface. But I also just want to encourage you tonight. I want you to know how, I may sound weird, but how proud I am that you committed to go to a school like this. Because this is very different, right? This is very different. And I just think it's amazing. And I know there's so much past history with these technologies, because if you're Gen Z or whatever generation y'all are now, I think it's Gen Z, right? I'm a millennial. Okay. I had some of the smartphone life, actually a lot of it, so we'll get into that in a little bit. But I'm studying all of the data of what's happening to us, but I'm more interested in what does the future look like for you? And what does it mean to be human? And what does it mean to really flourish? And I know there's a lot of really important things and topics and ideas that need to be shared. I actually think this is one of the most important for two reasons. Two of the most finite resources that you and me have as human beings that God has given us are our time and our attention. I mean, think about that. At the end of your life, those are the two things that are going to be incredibly necessary for us to reflect on it. And God's going to judge us on that. What do we do with our time and our attention? So as we start to go through some of the data, we're going to start to see that these technologies aren't neutral, right? These are actually, incredibly sophisticated psychological tactics that you just think you're kind of scrolling and posting and sharing your life. But behind that is trillions of dollars of research to get you to scroll more, right? So we're not actually here to tell you you're not mature enough to have technology, or that you can't ever use technology. I just think as an organization, we're all about intentionality, right? And when you use technology as a tool, great things happen. Thoreau said that we have become tools of our tools. And we want to help free people, and that's actually why we're at Free Church. You like how I fit that in there? I wanted to start with a drum solo, but I'll maybe do that next time. Okay, we don't need to see me. That's when I had short hair. Okay, here. Oh, goodness. Oh, gosh. Okay, here's just some data of where we're at, on a health spectrum in the U.S. I'm very interested in health and wellness and our bodies. And this is just some quick data. I'm going to just go through this just to give us a little idea of where we're at. According to the CDC, obesity has increased 70% over the last 30 years for adults and 85% for children. Globally, 18.6 million people died of heart disease in 2016, with that number projected to grow to 23.6 million people by 2030. Record deaths among young people dubbed deaths of despair, drug overdose, suicide, chronic alcoholism took over 200,000 lives pre-COVID, 2019. Between 2017 and 2019, the average U.S. life expectancy decreased for the first time in over 100 years. Americans are 10 times more likely to have depressive illness than they were 60 years ago, and a recent study found that the rate of depression has more than doubled in just the past decade. So has anyone read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation? A few people? Okay, this is kind of like a flagship book for us that I'd say is like really preparing the way for a movement like Humanality to impact. So this is some data from his book, just on the increase of anxiety, depression, specifically around this 2008-2010 realm. So freshmen, you already heard this, so you can't answer. But what happened in 2010? Could anyone share with me, like, technology-wise, like what happened in 2010? Were you guys alive in 2010? You were alive. Okay, cool. 2010. Anyone? Any ideas? The smartphone was out, yeah, 2007. But in 2010 specifically, the front-facing screen, the camera on the iPhone came out. So there was a huge shift, right? You usually had like take a picture, and all of a sudden, like our world turned into a selfie. And everything obviously became about how can we capture us, right? So in 2010, you see a pretty drastic, shift. And, the data on obviously what's happening with anxiety and depression, like literally dose-dependent effect from exposure from these platforms. So the more time you spend on name the social media platform, the worse your mental health outcomes are. We'll get more into that. But many American children spend less time outdoors each day than a maximum security prisoner. And the average adult spends 93% of their time indoors, even though we know that separation from sunlight destroys our circadian biology that dictates our health. So one of the things we're unpacking with Humanality is not just like your phone and screen and social media and pornography and gambling and gaming, but it's like technology, like the car's a technology, okay? The plane is a technology. I just flew on one this morning at 4 a.m. in the morning. I don't even know where I am right now. That's a weird technology, but that technology has implications, right? So we're not just unpacking like the phone on our health, we're unpacking a lot of different technologies. And how is this making us more human or less human? Okay, so here's a funny little graph. I don't know if this really makes a lot of sense. It looks like a lot of dots, but that's like the amount of months in your life. Okay, so right now, a third of your life is going to be asleep. Does anyone love sleep? Oh my gosh, you guys are so cool. I love sleep. I love sleep. I want to sleep tonight. Okay, so 126 months school. So this is about an average of a 90-year lifespan. 18 months are going to be driving, 36 months cooking and eating, 36 months chores and errands, 27 months in the bathroom. It's kind of fun when you add that up, right? It's like, dang, So right now, the average 18-year-old is on pace to spend 93%. So you see at the end those black dots there after the green ones. 93% of their free time on a screen. That's going to be over 26 years of your life looking like this. So here's my hope with what Humanality is doing. I want you to get to the end of your life and not see that number. I actually want that for like the world. I don't want that just for you. I want that for a lot of people. Because right now we're on pace to literally miss out on our own lives. Joey Odom, who started a company that has these little phone boxes, which are cool and whatever, but he said a really cool quote. He said that this is the first generation, meaning you and me, millennials, we're all addicted to. And I'd even say every generation is. But he specifically said, Gen Z is the first generation that's going to have more memories of other people's lives. Think your daily scroll of looking at memories of other people's days, right? They're going to have more memories of other people's lives than their own. That's really intense. I actually want you to experience the memory of the moment of your own life and share that with people in person. And here's the thing. We're going to go through how a lot of these platforms are purposely manipulating us to keep us engaged, which is how they make money, which I don't want to give them any more money. I think Zuckerberg has enough money. Can I get an amen? Amen. All right, cool. So again, we talked a little bit about technologies more than just obviously, a phone, a tablet, a TV. But I love this Neil Postman quote, because this is we have to nuance this, right? This is actually a really complex topic. But he says, quote, "We may learn from this that it is a mistake to suppose that any technological innovation has a one-sided effect. Every technology is both a burden and a blessing, not either or, but this or that." So I want to talk about addiction really quickly because I think when I'm, sharing this with a lot of people, they're like, "Are we actually addicted? Can we actually use that terminology?" And to me, the resounding answer is yes. Like literally this morning, every day I fly, right? Like every person and every, gate is just like this. It's like when you jump out of the matrix, man, it's like wild to like just look at everybody, right? So I think actually what the world is experiencing is clinical addiction, or at least compulsion, and then we'll get into dopamine and how all this is working in the brain. But this is just a definition from Cleveland Clinic on Addiction: a condition by which a person engages in use of a substance or a behavior for which the rewarding effects provide a compelling incentive to repeatedly pursue the behavior despite detrimental consequences. Growing evidence suggests that behavioral addiction resembles substance abuse in many domains. So this is 2013 in the DSM, behavioral addictions were added. There is a clinical disorder now called internet addiction disorder, and literally a diagnosis called nomophobia, which I think is hilarious. And it's literally like no mobile phone. So like when you don't have your phone on you at all times, you literally go into panic. It's like a real clinical diagnosis, nomophobia. All of you might be experiencing that right now since you just showed up at Wyoming Catholic College. But you all look great, and you're not having panic attacks, so this is good. So here's some of the impact that we know just from excessive screen time. This is from Gene Twangy. There's incredible intellectuals unpacking so much data. I'm a nerd. Is anyone else a nerd in here? I really just want to go over the data the whole time, but I know we have to have story because that's more engaging or whatever. But I'll give you some story and I'll give you some data, but here's some of the data. Excessive screen time is associated with a 30% higher risk of anxiety and depression in adults. Those who spend more than 7 hours a day on screens were twice as likely to be diagnosed with depression and anxiety as those who use screens for an hour a day. So right now, your average American, like adult, is about 5 to 7 hours a day. Teens is 8 hours and 39 minutes a day, with low-income communities around 10 hours a day of screen time. I remember like going on retreats, like most of my life has been traveling, playing music and speaking, but I remember going on this retreat, and I think the talk was like on prayer or something, and we're just, we're talking about, getting connected with God, and this kid raised his hand, he's like, "I just don't hear from God ever," I was like, "Yeah, I get that. I feel like he's been silent many times in my life." I was like, "What's your screen time at?" Just by chance, And it was like, can anyone take a guess? I think I did this in the last talk, but anyone guess? It was 16 hours of screen time a day. I was like, "Bro, there's probably a reason you're not hearing from God Almighty because you're scrolling all day, brother," And he was like, "Whoa, dude. Yeah, dude, it's crazy." Sorry, that's my California, like, stoner voice. Okay, so here's some attention issues that are happening. We are fragmenting our attention. Surprise! The average American glances at the device 352 times a day. I've seen that at 2,000 times a day, that number. 2013 Microsoft study reported that the average human attention span has fallen from 12 seconds to 8 seconds, with the goldfish at 9 seconds, okay? Guys, we got to step it up, okay? This is not good. Okay, so what's driving us to our devices? And here's what I want to share as well. Like, you shouldn't feel bad that you were or are struggling with some addictions to some platforms and some technology in your life. So I want to emphasize that because, when we were given these technologies, no one gave us an informed consent document that said, there could be some trade-offs. Your attention span could dwindle. You could be exposed to sexual imagery that would literally warp the white matter in your brain and perpetually actually ruin, your drive as you age. It didn't say anything about the social comparison that young women would experience. It didn't talk about anything of social contagion effect of literal borderline personality disorders and what they've now diagnosed, calling TikTok Tourette's syndrome, being passed via social media platforms. No one told us any of these things are going to happen, right? So we have to come at this with some compassion. Listen, your parents didn't know, like we didn't know, right? But why are we so, addicted to these things? There's actually some incredible science behind it. So these rat park experiments that were done by Dr. Bruce Alexander were pretty great. He went off of B.F. Skinner's work in the 60s. Does anyone know that name, B.F. Skinner? Okay, he did some rat experiments that actually showed that intermittent positive feedback increased engagement or addiction for these rats with these substances. So if you just consistently gave them hits of something, it didn't really work. But if you gave them intermittent hits and they didn't know when it was getting, just Now think about your scroll, right? Think about that novelty of every scroll. They noticed that you would be way more addicted if you actually didn't know what was coming next. And that dopamine hit that came after novelty, which is what our brains were designed to experience, excavate, be interested in, like these rat park experiments actually showed that there's something more happening. So B.F. Skinner showed that intermittent positive feedback, which is in every social media platform and technology we have today, does work. It actually brings the user, if you didn't know this, but the technology founders call us users. What does that sound like? Drug dealers. Very good, everyone. You're doing great. Okay. So these like drug dealers are essentially giving us these dopamine hits through these dings, pings, and rings. And this is to create a real conditioning that's happening. But Bruce Alexander was like, okay, I think there's something more than just intermittent positive feedback. He actually put these rats in what he called this rat park, which was like like a most amazing rat park you can imagine. They had the wheels. They had all the cheeses like you're going to experience tonight. They had, they had a lot of other things. They were... It was an amazing place for rats, like you would want to probably go. And they noticed that actually in these rat park experiments, they had the same drugs in those environments, and they noticed that the rats, even after hitting it once, would not go back to them because they were properly socialized, they had food, they had sex, they had connection, all these things that obviously these technologies are exploiting in us. So this is what Dr. Bruce Alexander said. Today's flood of addiction is occurring because our hyper-individualistic, hyper-competitive, frantic, crisis-ridden society makes most people feel socially and culturally isolated. So here's how some of this reward system's working. I just want you to understand this so you know, if you are, taking some hits of dopamine on the side, with your social media that you're like technically not supposed to be on or whatever is, happening in your brain. So it's like notification trigger, the action, desire to check the device, and then the investment. The way these companies made money was actually not by you paying anything but your own social capital. So by social capital, I mean your own life, because you actually want to feel that reciprocal liking. I don't know if you guys remember I remember when the like button came out, and I liked it. I liked the like, you know what I mean? It was like I posted something, and like all these people liked it, and then you look at who likes it, and I'm like, oh, she liked it. That's what I'm talking about. And then, it's like these other people liked it. We like the like. Okay? Because it's an investment of your own life that's getting feedback instantly, which, listen, never happens in real life. Can we talk about this for a moment? In real life, like today I just flew in an airplane and I did great. Like I sat there, I made it through. No one came up to me after and was like, Andrew, you did a great job flying today. But when I would post all my flights to all the places I was traveling the world to play music, people liked my flights. I was like, guys, I just sat there. Like, there was nothing cool about that, I just felt like I was going to die because I was 35,000 feet in the air with two random dudes, okay? Like, this is scary stuff. Okay, that was a side tangent. We're going to get back into the conversation here. But, like, feedback like that doesn't happen in real life. But this is how it's happening. Trigger, action, investment. And here's how they're keeping us addicted, through anger, violence, and the algorithm, which, guess what? We have no idea what the algorithm on any of these platforms actually is. Newsflash. Like, literally no one knows how these algorithms are affecting our humanity. But actually, there are scientists coming out that are sharing some very alarming things. One, Frances Haugens, in 2011, a whistleblower from Facebook, actually came out and showed internal data from Instagram that showed that Instagram knows that their algorithm was increasing suicidality, self-harm, and eating disorders amongst young girls. They knew it. And they were asked during an interview, like, should you change it? And they're like, no, this will decrease our engagement. So these are things these companies know, guys. This isn't something that's just like, oh, we don't know. Like, literally, Facebook's mantra, like Zuckerberg's mantra, was to move fast and break things. The problem is they just happen to, I believe, break the human person. And we're going to help people, put people back together. So here's some of the behaviorism tactics. Again, guys, this is deep science that's happening on every feed that you experience. So B.J. Fogg's a name you need to know. He was a behavior change science that started the Stanford lab called the Persuasive Design Lab. Do you want to know the title of the website of their work? Does anyone want to know? Okay, so 2 people not. Okay, 3 people. Okay. It was called Machines Designed to Change Human Behavior.com. Okay, so it's like these aren't just like fun little things, we're encountering in our life. These are really historically reliable like studies of how to change human behavior. So BJ Fogg was one of the guys. Here's 3 kind of ingredients that you need in order to get someone to make an action. A person has a desire to change, is able to change, and is prompted to change. So here's some of the things you'll see in your phone and your smartphone and social media that's throughout all of it, right? Red dots, notifications, data-driven product recommendation, and pings, dings, and rings. I like that because it rhymes. But these things are all, experienced in the phone. That is literally a lab that studied these tactics to change our behavior. The first 10 weeks that this existed, BJ Fogg had what's called now the Facebook class. Zuckerberg was in there and some other guys. In 10 weeks, they generated over $1 million of revenue with these tactics. And voila, Meta and Facebook and your Gram and your TikTok are born. I mean, it was literally money-making machine because they're exploiting vulnerabilities in your human psychology. I'm not going to read all these quotes. These are all really good. The one I want to emphasize is just the first one. Actually, I really want to read all of them, so I'm just going to do that. Actually, no, I'm going to read this first one. So what makes the core principles of behaviorism, remember, these are those 3 ingredients we just went over, work is its application within the context of human vulnerability for the social. The special sauce of Instagram, Snapchats, and Twitters of this world is a built-in mechanism that preys on our human desire for quantifiable and repeated peer acknowledgement and affirmation. The last one's really good. Dr. Matthew Lieberman, UCLA neuroscientist. Whenever we finish doing some kind of non-social thinking, then network for social thinking comes back on like a reflex almost instantly. Evolution has placed a bet that the best thing for our brain to do in any spare moment is to get ready to see the world socially. We are built to be social creatures. So guys, here's the reality of this. This is a good thing in us, amen? It is good that God created us to be social creatures. Isolation's actually physiologically killing us, and I actually believe that the technologies that are being deployed now and that are operating in our world today are a main contributor to the exponential increase in loneliness for most age groups. So this is a little data from the Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who actually came out and asked for warning labels, just like they did on cigarettes. He is asking for warning labels on social media platforms, just like they did for cigarettes. I don't think that happened, but that was a pretty big deal for him to do that. So here's a good quote from, this is guy Sean Parker, who was one of the first founders of Facebook. You need to understand, like, this was all on purpose. So this is Sean Parker, one of the first presidents of Facebook. He said, quote, "We need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. It's a social validation feedback loop, exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. The inventors, creators, it's me, it's Mark Zuckerberg, it's Kevin Systrom on Instagram. All these people understood this consciously, and we did it anyway. It literally changes your relationship with society, with each other. It probably interferes with productivity in weird ways, obviously. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains." Okay, so guys, this isn't like some conspiratorial thing I'm bringing up. This is literally the dude that like started some of these social media platforms telling us he's hacking our brains, okay? So this is also from Chamath. I think this is a very important quote because this guy also left Facebook, doesn't use any of these products, and doesn't give them to his children. Here's what he said. "The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops we've created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of like, there's probably aren't any unintended consequences. I think in the back, deep, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. So we are really in a bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It's eroding the core foundation of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. My solution is I just don't use these tools anymore, and I haven't for years." Okay, guys, so the kind of question is, like, when these guys are telling you, one, they're purposely hacking the human person, they also don't use these platforms themselves. I know some of you probably know this. Steve Jobs didn't give his children the iPad. They all went to what's called Waldorf schools, which are low-tech to zero-tech schools, which we're going to talk about why I think, again, you are going to be far ahead of your generation going through this experience. while I'm in Catholic college. Because the funny thing is, the guys that created all these technologies didn't partake in them. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. I need water. Okay, so my story, I'm going to make this quick because, oh my gosh, time just flies. So my story is pretty simple. I got, we had flip phones in high school. It was super cool. I had the slide. You don't even know, guys. This was incredible. The razor flip. Whoa-pow! It was just amazing. And then, was on MySpace. I went on some messaging. I would say already at those times, those were already getting corrupted, completely over-sexualized, horrible things happening on MySpace. Like right away, they had these things called like your top 8. Okay, so you had like your top 8 friends on MySpace. And I literally remember in high school, like my friend Corey, who was like my number 1, like he did something, you know what I mean? And I put him down to number 3. And we didn't talk for like 2 weeks after that, you know what I mean? It was crazy, dude, to like change someone's top 8. And like think of that. That was just the beginning, right? Think of all of your Snapchat, like, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok world of like all these interactions that are people are experiencing what's called the disinhibition effect. So this is the reality that you would never say these things in person, but you would say these things online, and they're usually negative, right? Like most of the things that people say online in comment sections and like comment wars and Reddit and all these things, like they would never say in person. So I started to experience all those things. I was exposed to pornography when I was 14, and it was normal in my high school. I mean, it was encouraged, it was healthy. This is a public high school, and this is like, this is early, middle 2000s, and that was just a normal thing that like my friends and I would watch. And again, it was just freedom, and little did like I know that it was going to lead to like incredible bondage, and we didn't really know what it was doing to us at the time. So fast forward, like I left the faith in high school. I partied. I was not a good, kid. I went to youth group because I had to, and ended up getting caught by the cops when I was 19, and I'm sitting in the back of this cop car like, I don't want to be in this position again. Like, this isn't fun, And I had no, like, I want to follow Jesus or anything like that. I was, like, not going to do the religious thing. Science had disproven God, and I was like, I'm not going to, not going to do this whole religious thing, and ended up getting, invited to go to a Steubenville conference in Arizona, and in adoration and confession, like my life was just transformed. And it changed. I mean, I started watching Mother Angelica every day. I mean, guys, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I was praying with grandma after Mass. I mean, it got weird really quick, And I was like, I really love this theology thing. Like, and they're like, yeah, you can study that. I was like, no. Like, yeah, it's called theology. Like, you can go get a degree. So anyway, I went to Franciscan and got my degree in theology, and that's where like smartphones came into the picture. I don't even remember the day I got my smartphone, and to me this is interesting. A lot of people remember that day. I don't remember. All of a sudden it was just part of every moment of my life and leading me to sin pretty frequently. Obviously at this point now I'm like, I want to be pure. I want to be a saint. I don't want these toxic addictions anymore. And then like Facebook started getting like a little bit more addictive. I went on Instagram, I had Snapchat, I was on Twitter, like I was on all these, and I was like, wait, Snapchat is just like people posting like every moment of their day, and like you just get to creepily watch them, and one of the girls I was interested in, I was like, yeah, I'm in, like I get to watch every moment of your day, like this is great. These are like the weirdest things ever when you think about it. It's like just creepy people creeping on people. Can I get an amen? So anyway, I was totally addicted to Snapchat, totally addicted to Facebook. I start getting asked to play music around the country, around the world, and I find myself in airplanes, trains, and cars, and I find myself in a lot of downtime. And I notice that I start scrolling my life away on many different fronts. And then guess what? Like as you get a little older, guys, you'll notice this happens. But you graduate, which I know feels crazy, but it will happen at some point. And then people start getting married, and people start getting jobs and start having children, and every Facebook feed was like everyone's best day of the latest engagement of them doing, remote work on Fiji with a margarita or whatever, it was like, and then I was scrolling through my day and I was just kind of always somewhere else. And Felicia Wu Song has said this in her book, Restless Devices, that we're forever elsewhere. I noticed that I wasn't engaging in my own life. I was engaging in everyone else's life. These platforms were leading me to lust every day. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of done. I had a big following online at the time for my music, and I told my record label and management at the time, I'm deleting all my social media, and I'm going to a flip phone, and they're like, you're crazy. Like, this is a horrible idea. And I was like, I know. and I'm going to do it. So I did it. And like that year, that was 2018, I got asked to play gigs all over the world. We're talking coast to coast Canada, South America, coast to coast US, Europe, Jerusalem, all with the flip phone, and like my mom knew where I was, you know? Like no one knew anymore like where I was. And I experienced like better friendships. My purity improved, my prayer improved, my productivity improved. Like everything in my life got better, and I had no idea what got. I was just this weird random dude with a flip phone that was T9 texting, which you don't even know what that means, but it's really hard, okay? And like calls were dropping, and I got stranded in many places. So as I started to, really fall in love with healing and health and wellness, technology I just found was making a huge impact. I'm flying around the world speaking to young people. Depression, anxiety, suicidality, porn addiction. I mean, everywhere I go, this topic's coming up. And I'm like, I just knew I was, onto something. I didn't know it would turn into this. But my story, I think, is maybe somewhat like yours, and maybe like a lot of people. You've had some experiences online that you wish you never did. Maybe you wasted time. Maybe you've seen stuff you've never wanted to see. And maybe this whole experience at college right now is a little scary to you. I just want to encourage you, there's like incredible freedom on the other side of this. And there is a real peace that actually comes with giving God back his power of omnipresence. So I shared this at the last talk, but on the back of the iPhone, right, is a half-eaten apple. We all know about that half-eaten apple story, right? In Genesis, that Adam and Eve were tempted, and you need to. If you eat at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you become like God. And what I found fascinating is actually with the phone, you are now omnipresent. You are participating in an attribute of God you were never designed to experience, which is you being everywhere in the palm of your hand. And I remember scrolling through my Instagram and seeing like a tsunami and someone getting wiped out. And then like the next thing was like someone getting shot. And then the next thing was someone screaming about like Trump or like whoever. And then the next thing was like porn. And then it was like, oh, it was Father Mike Schmitz, and it was like something great. And it was like, or something other Catholic thing. And it was like, my body and my mind are not supposed to be all these places. Like, this is a power meant for him. This is a power meant for God. I'm not going to go into all these data points here, but this is some of the stuff I started to discover. Like, okay, wow, this isn't just my problem. Like, I'm not the only one struggling with this thing. Trying to be pure, trying to get my time back, trying to get my mental health back. But some of these are pretty alarming. I mean, there's 210 million people worldwide that suffer from social media addiction. I think that number is low, to be honest. A study found that 64% of young people aged 13 to 24 actively seek out pornography weekly or more often. Pornography consumption is associated with decreased sexual and relational satisfaction, and a meta-analysis of 50 studies found a significant correlation between pornography consumption and attitudes supporting violence against women. So these things they have implications on actually every realm. So here's some of the two ways we've already talked about this. The novelty, just think of every new scroll you get. Something new is what our brains are designed for, and that gives you a dopamine hit. And dopamine, we know, raise your hand if you know about dopamine. Everyone kind of knows about dopamine. It's this feel-good chemical in the brain that's released when we do something good, which guess what? God created dopamine. Can I get an amen? Can I get a hallelujah? That's why when you eat that steak, I'm talking about that super rare, grass-fed, grass-finished steak, there's a reason after that experience your brain is like, woo! You know what I mean? It's dopamine, it's a good thing, but these technologies are hijacking your dopamine receptors to actually create a dulling effect. There's actually an increase, Dr. K has been talking about this, in alexithymia, which is this color blindness to one's own emotional state, which is particularly happening amongst men. Like men, like we were pretty bad at that before, you know what I mean? Like, oh, how do you feel? Blah, it's like, we weren't doing too well on that front. And now it's like even worse, you know what I mean? We actually aren't able to take into account our own emotional state because we're constantly outsourcing our time and attention and leaving the place where God wants to meet us, which is inside. So here's two things happening too. Our cognitive decline is happening. We're actually creating what's called dichotomous thinking, opposed to spectrum thinking, which spectrum is actually being able to be nuanced and complex. These technologies are actually creating binary thinking, black and white thinking, because you're getting so many extremes. It's called an extremification. On all these platforms, it's extremification. You are not able to enter into the nuance of these topics, which is obviously, nuance is incredibly helpful in life. So here's some of these ideas. I play around with technology. I kind of compare some of these social media, gaming, porn platforms to junk food, and obviously the real nourishment we need of human connection and using technology in the tool isn't really the salad. That should have been a steak, but I like salads too. But there has been a 400% increase in antidepressants in the last 30 years. We're throwing pills at a lot of things that probably have their place. I'm not a medical expert in that realm. I'm not saying there isn't a need for that in some capacity. But I think because we're so not living like God designed us, in the way that we're sitting all day, the way that we're indoors, the way they're communicating with one another, our diet, our lack of sleep, because we're scrolling. The average American is losing 30 minutes of sleep a night just from our tech. I did that myself. Anyone like scroll really late into the night? Okay, yeah, just a few of us. Okay, cool. These things are all impacting our health. Okay, so let's get to like the good part, and then I need to make this good part like really fast. So awareness is the first step to freedom, and here's the Humanality solution, right? So I've read 50 plus books on the topic. I'm reading this and I'm like, how do you solve probably one of the most complex, biggest problems on the planet right now? There's about 6.2 billion people that have a smartphone on this earth. I remember I was in Guatemala like a few years ago, literally seeing people on the side of the road scrolling. I mean, these people make $400 a month maybe. They have smartphones and they're scrolling. I mean, this is all over the world, you know. This isn't just here. So how is our solution different from them maybe just from an app or maybe getting rid of these technologies? I really think it's empowering information to create real actionable habits in your day-to-day life that create freedom. Okay, and that's what Humanality is all about, is actually creating real, tangible change with your technology to bring you freedom. Couple key ingredients, I'm not going to go over all this, but couple key ingredients for behavior change science. Has anyone ever felt like, man, it's like really hard to like change habits in their life? Has anyone felt that? Yeah, it's like, dude, I shouldn't eat that pizza that looks so incredible and greasy, and I shouldn't go on that next YouTube video of like whatever, or I shouldn't watch that next Netflix thing that's just already scrolling to the next one and starting the next episode. You know, like I should stop that, you know. Okay, I think all of us have experienced that. Here's 3 ingredients that you'll experience and that we're teaching to the world, essentially, in these Humanality villages that help create behavior change that's lasting. So it's awareness, it's your environment, and accountability. I want to emphasize 2 points here, actually, for your school here. So you actually have an environment, guys, that, again, I don't know actually where else this exists. So your school environment now, where this is happening, has a huge impact on your physiological response to day-to-day habits. So like a huge part of, for me, my healing in my life was getting rid of my smartphone. I have a light phone. Has anyone heard of the light phone? Yeah, cool. I have a light phone. It does what I need it to do. I couldn't have a smartphone. It just didn't work for me. I tried to be moderate. Guess what I would waste my time on my smartphone with no social media, no emails, no nothing? Any guesses? The Weather Channel and my Delta app. Because I look at my points to see where I'm flying, I'll check on my seat. I would find random stuff, guys, to just waste time with, right? We love to waste time as humans. And I was looking at my screen time, and I was like 5 to 7 hours a day. And I remember looking at that number at the end of my life, and I was like, I don't want to look at the end of my life and see that screen time. I want to get my time back. So those 2 things that you're experiencing, accountability and environment, which like is a huge portion of the healing process, guys, you're getting to like experience this here. This is an incredible gift that I know is like hard, you know, to experience. But this is an amazing gift. So this is just like a fun idea I like to play around with. If you think about every minute that you spend on social media and say you paid $1, the average person is probably paying about $153,000 a year of their time. If you correlate, you know, 1 minute of your time to $1, if that's what your time is worth, right? Money is just a monetary exchange of value. Right, so like what's really valuable to you? That's how an economy works, right? We're exchanging value. So right now, your average, 18-year-old is spending $153,000 a year. That's a lot of money, That's that could be some Bitcoin, you know what I'm saying? We'll talk about that later. I love this quote from Blaise Pascal. All of humanity's problems stem from the fact that man could not sit alone with himself for just 1 hour. So there's an incredible gift. Again, when you don't do something and when you aren't stimulated by the screen, your brain activates what's called the default mode network, which Dr. Arthur Brooks has been actually talking about a lot lately. This is incredibly helpful for creativity. And boredom is like one of the greatest things on the planet. If you want to be successful in life, get bored. Okay, so there's a lot of studies on this. I'm not going to have time to go into this. But one of them was called the Torrance Tolerance Test that actually studied and followed a group of students at a university in Minneapolis from university all the way into adulthood. And they found that the best predictors of success in their life was not their wealth, was not their area code, was not their IQ. It was actually their level of creativity. So I want to address this point really quickly, and then we're going to open this up for questions, and I'm like way over time probably. Okay, I'm close. As AI becomes fully integrated in our human experience in the coming years, it would be hard for me to not address this book talking about technology, right? Here's the thing. I've been trying to actually read up on this and listen to these guys that are doing this. Here, I'm going to give you, you don't have to watch anything anymore. I'm going to tell you how it's going to happen, right? Nobody knows, okay? No one knows how this is going to happen. They're projecting, Goldman Sachs just came out and said that 300 million people are going to lose jobs. This is going to take over. General intelligence is going to take over. You got Elon's robots, doing dance moves already. You know what I mean? And it's kind of crazy. Robots are going to be doing everything. This might happen, and I will stay in Lander, Wyoming, because this is a good place to be when the robots come and take us out. Anyway, the idea at Wyoming Catholic College is maybe, well, how can we prepare students for the future of AI, which we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to disrupt everything. It's the fastest changing technology humanity's ever experienced. What do we do? The hilarious point is you do exactly what the founders of these tech companies did. You limit your use of technology in your day-to-day life, and you cultivate boredom and creativity. And those two ingredients will make you incredibly successful in the workplace, in relationships, in your marriages, in your vocations. I mean, across the board, it's going to make you so much more ahead of the game. Right now, there's actually a few business owners I talked to recently, young people in the workplace right now are leaving within 6 months. They can't handle the stress, they can't handle conflict resolution, they have no idea how to handle their emotional states. Guys, you are going to be so amazing out in the world and be such a light to the world if you really take on, I think, what this university is proposing. So there's a lot more to go into, but I want to open this up at the end of sharing the 11 humanality ways. This is the solution that I've come up with. If you implement these 11 ways into your life, you will be more fully human, you will be more happy, you will be more successful, your mind, body, soul will flourish. So be light, be giving, be present, be outside, be mobile, be connected, be silent, be mindful, be simple, be free, be human. In our curriculum we go through all the science and all these unpacking what technology is doing and undoing in our lives. One of them I want to just hit briefly that I know a lot of you experience, and I would actually love to hear from you for a moment, is the be outside. Who went on the 21-day, the freshman? Okay, does anyone want to share maybe one part of that experience of you not being connected to anything but nature, each other, and God, what that was like? Just super brief. Anyone want to share? Just raise a hand. Yeah.
I felt like I could truly be myself with people around me because there's absolutely nothing for me that I had to do. Because everybody was going through the same physical things, and so everybody was struggling, everybody was breaking down. But then that way we can help each other build back up.
I love that.
Really our true selves.
It's amazing. Yeah, this is something that's interesting that's happening that I noticed in my own life. I was escaping my own pain. Many different things I've struggled with in life, right? And I just noticed that I was always escaping that psychological stress, pain through my device. And I never really faced, myself. And then I was in seminary for a time, and it was during COVID, and it was I was a monk of another. I mean, it was bad, you know what I mean? And I had to be with myself a lot. In that sense, it's hard, you know what I mean? And because I didn't have that place to escape. And I did notice, and different professors and stuff talk about this, but Peterson talks about this, is hardship inoculation idea. You have to go through hard things. And I do think one of the hardest things in my life has been getting off a lot of these technologies, is being with myself. And, it is funny how Jesus says to love your neighbor as yourself. And I can kind of love anybody. You know what I mean? It's I meet a lot of people. I can love people. I find it's really hard to love myself, and I found that the experience you're talking about, most people don't get in their lifetime. Most people don't get to know themselves. And actually, I shared on this last time. I was on a flight. I was sharing Humanality somewhere. And, take off. This girl sits next to me, scrolling the whole time, right? And I kind of like to look at what people are looking at, So I do the just like, oh, and then see their screen and stuff. She was literally scrolling, takeoff, boom, brrr, not on any content. It was 1,000 miles an hour. We hit 10,000 whatever, lost Wi-Fi or connection. She put the phone down and closed her eyes and went to sleep. And then the second Wi-Fi came on. It was like, bing. Thank you for flying Delta Airlines. You can now connect to our free in-flight service of Wi-Fi. Please connect on deltawifi.com. And all of a sudden, she wakes up. She's on Wi-Fi, scrolls the entire time. We're landing. She loses Wi-Fi. Anyway, the second we land, I get out my light phone and I'm texting someone because I need to get a ride, okay? It's a good part of the texting experience. And she looks at my phone and she's like, what is that? I'm like, this is a light phone. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so addicted to my phone. And I was like, no, crap, lady. I didn't say that. But I was like, I noticed you were scrolling excessively. And she said something, though, I'll never forget, and it's really true, and it's to this point. She said this, and I didn't, prompt her or anything. She's like, I can't stand to be with my own thoughts for 1 second. And Harvard actually did a study on this, which is hilarious because it totally confirms this, but put students in a room, 15 minutes. They administered them a shock. After that time, they were asked to be in the room again for another 15 minutes. I think this is 2017 Harvard study. And one student, because he couldn't bear to be with himself, shocked himself 168 times during those 15 minutes. I mean, this is how bad some of us don't want to be with ourselves. And honestly, I think you're so amazing, and I think God created you out of love for love. I think you're worth getting to know, and I think you're worth getting to know yourself. Amen? And this experience you're entering into, guys, is one of those ways. So being outside, I love that. That's amazing. A lot of these other principles help to counteract the negative outcomes that we're seeing in technology. I don't have time to go into all of these. So here's a place you can start, which obviously at your university is kind of funny because you've already started because you all technically shouldn't have phones. So you can't join a Humanality Village, even though you could. We could talk about that. Part of the major moment that I think you're entering into is that leap of faith, right? Raise your hand if this is your first time going phone-free. Okay, nice. Raise your hand if you've done this the last 4 years and you're a senior. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is new for a lot of people. Here's some fun leaders that did really radical things actually to secure their time and their attention. I'm not going to go on their stories, but those are pretty epic pictures. I definitely want that stash one day. So these are a bunch of ways. We're just going to close with this, actually. Here's a bunch of ways that you can create some space with your tech, which you're kind of entering into, and this is probably a list describing almost what you're about to enter into. You can declutter your phone. We offer, Wise phones and light phones. You can grayscale your phone. You can block certain hours. I mean, there's a gajillion things to do. Look at some of that, and even think of today, with your computers, with your work at, university. There's still ways that obviously you can take on a more intentional relationship with technology. And obviously, I realize if you have access to the internet, you could go on anything you want on your desktop, okay? The computer is just another phone. This isn't oh my gosh, alarming. This is a reality of the use of technology. So maybe look up some things like this and maybe pick one, all right? As we go into this semester, maybe pick one. Again, a lot of these things you're already doing. Maybe pick one and start to take that on intentionally and have someone that you're accountable to. Everyone's laughing at these things, which I don't know why, which we can talk about later. But these are things that other humans have to do, okay? So people that have phones, they need to make a digital bedtime. Does anyone know what digital bedtime is? So I really want to create this, guys. This is great. I'm going to stop after this. But I want to create a little Humanality bed, a foam bed. That's just a tiny little bed, you know what I mean? And you have just covers and a pillow. And at 8 p.m., you just tuck that little phone in there, put that thing to sleep. And then the next 2 hours, you just have a phone-free evening. Okay, guys, this is radical stuff. When people hear that, they're like, no, I'm not going to put my phone to bed. You're like, what am I going to do? It's dude, that's the whole point, okay? So anyway, I'm done. There's a lot more we could go over. But I want to open this up for some questions. I know we have a little bit of time. I think we're going to just have a microphone around. Obviously, listen, that's a lot of information. My hope is that actually this encourages you that, like, one, there is a real solution to the problem, and you guys actually are part of something really special here that the world is trying to figure out a solution to, and I think this university is like really leading the charge, and so I'm super honored to be here and get to share what we're doing at a lot of other places around the country and internationally. But I want to hear from you guys, like, I want to hear any questions you have on some of the science, some of what I shared. It could even be just what your own experience has been, or maybe questions about the future with AI and technology. I just want to open it up for a little bit, so anyone can ask professors, anyone. Do not be afraid.
Be coming around with the mic, okay?
Thank you for your lecture. When did you start with Humanality, and how did this start, basically?
This is a great question. So I came on board 2 years ago, so 2023, and Hope and Justin Schneer started a scholarship at Franciscan University where they paid students scholarship money to give up a smartphone and take on a dumb phone. And it started to get all this attraction, people finding out about it. It turned into this movement, and then they came to me. I left seminary, discerned out of seminary at that time, and this was just part of my story. Like, I loved these topics of health and wellness, and been on a flip phone, and it was a total God thing. And so we started launching these clubs at universities because we realized it was bigger than Franciscan, and now we've been launching these clubs at universities, and we realize this is bigger than universities. Like, high schools want this, parents want this, businesses are reaching out to us, track teams, I mean, you name, sports, it's pretty incredible. So this is year 2, so we're super young, but that's a little bit how it started, and I'm in the process of writing a book. We obviously just share our information through a website. We're not on any social media platforms, just to clarify. But, our curriculum is like a journal and a video series, so it's like we're sharing information using technology as well, because it's not all bad. But so now, anyone can launch these Humanality Villages, which is going to be people going through the curriculum, taking on challenges like you saw, and going through their own detox with their family, friends, churches, other universities, high schools. So that's all literally happening like right now. So it's a pretty exciting time for us. But it took me about 2 years to try and understand the problem and try and find okay, what's real solutions? And real solutions are getting in person, doing human things, like what you guys are doing, going hiking, getting outside, connecting, with each other, getting lost places, eating food together, it's weird stuff like that. Great question. Does that answer the question? Cool. Anyone? We got some others?
Thanks, Andrew. So your recommendations for your personal use of technology and at home in your phone and your relationship with that makes sense. But a lot of people, when I talk to them, say that they can't escape it outside of work. So in the work week, they're staring at a double screen monitor, they're checking email, they're on Excel.
For sure.
Is there anything or any kind of advice you'd have within the realm of work and business as opposed to just at home?
Yeah, so I think the Wise Phone, PhoneWise is a great technology that has every app you need work-wise, just minus the internet / social media, gaming, anything like that. So everyone doesn't need to go to a Wise Phone. You can use an iPhone intentionally, and so we have a whole process within our program to demify your smartphone. So it's very basic stuff, like take off the stuff that you're addicted to and just keep the stuff you need for work, But within that context of work, it's my everyday, I work on a computer. I'm at a computer that's technically where I'm communicating with different schools and, sharing what we're doing. So I'm on it as well. I mean, one of the things that's obviously a huge part of this that I didn't share, but it's in our episode Be Light, is our light environment, which people know here. I like to live by candlelight when I can, which is weird. I get it. But staring at screens all day, the blue light really is affecting our circadian biology. We weren't designed to see these frequencies without other full light spectrum in our day-to-day. So for me, I just try and take breaks, right? So it's I'm hitting emails, I'm on Zoom calls, I go outside, get sunlight on my eyes. Myopic diseases are radically increasing around the world, specifically in Japan and some of these places where people are on screens all day. So I'm like, yeah, your eyeballs are going to get destroyed, I mean, in the next 40 years. So we partner with other companies called Daylight Computer, and they literally have a blue light-free computer that I have that's like amazing. It's really awesome technology. So there's people starting to unpack some of these problems and find solutions, but yeah, it's like finding those times to, to get outside. If you need to have those apps, have them maybe just on the phone, take off the other things that are maybe more addictive, or even just have it on the desktop, So again, this is like totally nuanced, and you have to, there's some jobs where people are on call like all the time. Like they can't live where I live, where I have no cell reception where I live. My mother's very upset about that. But I kind of really love it. So, but I realized everyone can't do that. Does that make sense? What else? A lot of questions. This is great.
Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is, what would you recommend that, so it's great that like we are here, we heard your lecture, we are aware, like we're here and aware that screens can be a problem, but what do we do for our siblings, cousins, friends who would never in 1,000 years be like, oh yes, this is what's causing my depression, even though from the outside looking in, we can see that there are these major problems in their lives.
Totally.
So how would you recommend reaching them, evangelizing, so to speak?
Yeah,
There you go.
I was going to say, it's the same thing you do to evangelize. You love them. I mean, I wish there was a better, cooler answer, but like it's hilarious how many people come up to me that know what I do, know how I operate with technology, know I'm not on anything, don't know about my life, and they're like, I wish I could do that. I mean, it's like insane how many people say that. And even the people that don't, and they say they never would, like they'll like hit me up later and be like, I wish I could do that, So I think the best way to live this out is, again, to live it like we would the gospel, right? It's like live a life of love and show the joy of what it's like to like, what is it called, JOMO? Like the joy of missing out? Like I have no idea what's happening in the world most of the time, or my friends. Like I just called a buddy the other day. He's like, yeah, I just had a baby. I was like, dude, that's awesome. Like it was exciting, I didn't know. Some other people like had serious, health conditions and heart surgeries and stuff that I'm like finding out about, and I can pray for them now. So yeah, there's things you miss. There's like plenty of reasons why people say they won't do it. I think if you just witness to the joy and love of what it's like to be, fully human and fully alive, like it's attractive. Like I don't really have to sell this thing. I just share like what we're doing, and people are like, I want that, because we know we're addicted to these things, So I actually don't think it's a super hard sell. Also, like, it's not like I'm trying to convince people to get off of every platform. What we do at Humanality is share the information, share the tactics of how big tech is trying to addict you, share the implications on your psychology, your mental health, your relationships, your purity, your health, etc., and then let you make the decision. That's kind of what I love about what I'm doing, is like I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. I'm essentially inviting them in to the possibility that there is another way to live, and that maybe the last 10 years of this social experiment we're all in has gone wrong. And we're going to choose to live another way. Like, I'm probably never going to do the Neuralink thing and, like, put the chip in my brain, you know what I mean? And, like, be connected to Elon. Like, I'm just not going to do that, I don't know if I'll get a robot. It does sound kind of fun, but I'm not there yet. So anyway, just, be a loving witness, and that's enough, I think maybe one or two more. I know we're at time.
Thank you so much for the lecture. It was super righteous. You talked a little bit about kind of some of the damages that the technology would do to your brain, relationships, creativity, all that stuff. I was wondering if you have done any like research on like the recovery time, like specifically regarding creativity, and all that other jazz, of course. But like, what does it look like as soon as you put down the phone? Do you have like a timeline?
That's a great question. Yeah, Dr. Anna Lemke in her book Dopamine Nation, and Dr. Kardarshan and a few other physicians will put you in the 4 to 6 week realm. So for your like dopamine receptors to kind of heal, recalibrate. Here's the amazing thing about our brains, is that we have this neuroplasticity in our brain, which is incredibly good news. You can literally transform your brain at any time in your life for the better. So the good news is your brain is very malleable, and your actions and your habits literally dictate the neural networking of your brain. And so when you're used to super high stimulation, super high dopamine, and again, this dulling effect. I mean, I even saw it this summer, like playing these student conferences, like these high school, teens are just like, I mean, they're literally, because real life isn't entertaining enough. I mean, it's crazy, but if you go 4 to 6 weeks, I'd say pretty much what you did like 21 Day in the woods, that'll knock it out. That'll really do the thing. But I think that's enough. And then it's like, okay, how do we calibrate the good stuff in the day? And it's not like I don't ever listen to podcasts. I have found myself over-consuming podcasts. I would say I was like addicted to information. So it's like every other YouTube lecture, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to watch that, And so it's not even bad. It doesn't have to be bad things. But I found that actually like reading material and getting deeper into like the author was way more helpful than like a lot of podcasts. Like I don't really remember a lot of the podcasts I've listened to. They're kind of just part of your day. You're exercising, you're driving, you're doing things. I don't think we're articulating and creating actionable habits with a lot of information. So again, I just found that I was even addicted to good things on the internet, and I had to start to move away from those. And that again has created so much improvement. But yeah, I'd say if you can get through the 4 to 6 week time period, again, there's a lot of data showing that there is legit withdrawal symptoms that people are experiencing. So great question, bro. Bro Sidon. Maybe one more. Are we done? I don't know what our time.
Thank you for your lecture. You seem to indicate that when you were talking about social media use, one of the major problems is an obsession with secondhand experience and kind of making that into our reality. Do you think that AI is a continuation of this kind of obsession or kind of reconception of first-hand experience as secondhand, or do you think it's something fundamentally different?
No, I think it's the same. So already right now, like Zuckerberg has come out and said your Instagram algorithm is already 50% AI. So it's learning you better than you know yourself already, and that's just going to keep getting more and more advanced. So the incentives, again, are not going to change. These companies make money by monetizing your attention and selling them to advertisement. So with AI, they're just going to get better at doing that. They're just going to get better at addicting you because the algorithm's learning you faster. It's knowing what you like, which usually, again, they're exploiting things we like, which what we like are threats. So the human brain was a threat detection system, right? So that's why you look at the news, and every day, what do you hear, guys? Breaking news, like every day, it's like, dude, is it really breaking every day? I don't know it was breaking every day, but like every day there's a threat. Those threats keep you engaged. The algorithms are doing better and better at keeping you engaged through threats, right? Which could be a whole slew of things. Whether it's this ideology, that conversation, that argument, atheist, Christian. Like Ben Shapiro did this, like someone told me he did 2 videos, one was like, Ben has like incredible conversation with like atheists, and the other one was like, Ben Shapiro, destroys left-wing activists, And it was like that one got like a gajillion more views, than the one that was just something good and probably wholesome, So again, the incentives aren't going to change. I don't see this going well moving forward with the AI realm. So just like Chamath, the guy who was part of Facebook, they just don't use these platforms, and I don't myself.
Okay, can we have one very last question?
This guy's, he's had his hand up for a while. He has a very nice suit, too. I obviously missed the whole suit thing. I just landed. Okay, I do have nice suits, but I apologize. I didn't know about the suit thing. Sorry, you have a great suit. Let's give him a round of applause. That's a great suit. That's a nice suit.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. So obviously this is a Catholic school, so in our future are probably many babies. And I'm wondering, because not all of us are going to be able to live in a consecrated birthing community, how do we treat technology with our kids, right? Like, can you let kids have any access to it, or is it just fundamentally going to destroy them?
Yeah, it's a great question. The lead into that, dude, was incredible. I'm trying to recover. Lots of babies is great. Be fruitful and multiply for sure. I do think that it's very different when we talk about television and Little House on the Prairie and TikTok. Okay, so there's movies, there's screens I think that can be a part of a children's life. Dr. Victoria, I think Dunkley, I think is her last name. She, I'm probably screwing that up. She has, and many other people are saying what ages should start exposure to certain platforms. At this point, it's like 0 to 2 is like 0 exposure, which, how many, sadly, young kids I see everywhere on iPads, and stuff like that. So I think for children, what's kind of the gift of all this is that the data's out now. This wasn't out when I was, growing up. The data's out now. You as parents, moving forward, are going to have way more information, and you can go to humanality.org to experience that, and join a Humanality Village and pay us lots of money. You're going to have way more resources to answer that question, but I'd say in general, again, the more that you can give your kids real-life experiences and limit technology on almost every front, I don't think that, again, there's certain age groups where it's like, starting to watch a television show is good, but television shows, again, like 20 years ago look so different. If you were to just watch like an action movie from 20 years ago and watch an action movie now, has anyone like noticed the shift? It's like the opening scene is like the gnarliest explosion you've ever seen in your life. It's like Mission Impossible, like just things blowing up for days. And it's like, dude, we just started, It's like, but they have to keep you engaged, right? So I think for young people, yeah, the more time you can spend time outside, obviously this is all of Jonathan Haidt's work is this experience deprivation that's occurring. They're losing social emotional learning. They're learning how, losing how to be human. So I think the more you can limit it, the better. And again, it's going to look very different with AI in the coming years. But I don't see the incentives changing. So I'd say the best way to do it is to limit it, again, like they did with their children.
Okay, let's thank Andrew for the talk.
And just FYI, I live here, and I'm here occasionally. So if you see me walking around, I'd love to say hi, I'd love to chat. If you have more questions or want to learn, more about what we're doing, or have your sibling that's totally addicted and needs help, we can help them out. So you'll see me around town, but I'm super honored to be here. Thank you for listening. I know that was a lot of information, but we'll be praying for you guys, and thank you again.